A fallen kingdom, an old war, and a familiar curse. This is Dark Souls 2 lore, everything we know so far. Like with all my lore videos, I'm going to interpret the lore in my own way, and I'll tell you what I'm almost certain the game will be about. So I'm not 100% sure about everything, but again, like my lore videos, I wouldn't even try to interpret it unless what I said was backed up by actual evidence. Links to the sources are in the description, so go through it and draw your own conclusions too. My current belief is that Dark Souls 2 takes place many years after the Chosen Undead's story, so far in the future that the events of the past are legend, or at least a distant memory.
Dranglake's been a pile of rubble since the war, fought long, long ago. And the giants crossed the sea.
According to this dialogue, the giants crossed the sea long ago. So who are the giants? I consider the giants to be the deity race from the original game. They were the ones who found the Lord Souls within the First Flame, and eventually came to rule from Anor Londo, a palace designed for giants. While some of them aren't giants in the stereotypical sense of the word, many of them have the power to manipulate their size depending on their power, and I think this is what makes them giants. So why would these giants have crossed the sea to another land? In the timeline of the Chosen Undead, the light from the First Flame is fading. The world is getting darker, colder, and Lordran seems to be at the center of it all. The Lords are losing their influence in the world, with their power being sustained by the illusion of life and light in Anor Londo. Among humans, a curse is spreading that turns humanity insane, and most of the human lands you visit are overrun by hollow soldiers or demons. So what are the giants to do? Well, remember, the description of the ring of the Sun Princess from Dark Souls says this: "The Princess of Sunlight, Guinevere, left Anor Londo along with many other deities. Driven out of their crumbling kingdom, perhaps Dranglake is the land the giants fled to." But regardless, whether Guinevere and the other lords were the giants who crossed the sea to Dranglake, it seems that these giants sparked a war in Dranglake that collapsed this kingdom as well. The kingdom of Dranglake was ruled by King Vendrick, a just king who gave high-ranking appointments to knights who demonstrated their valor and charity. Distinguished warriors were granted the Royal Soldier's Ring, which increases the load that can be carried. The king favored the warriors who staked every battle on their strength alone, and the kingdom was led to prosperity. The official retinue to the king were his halberd-wielding dragon riders. It seems like dragons will be playing a part in the lore of Dark Souls 2. Are they the same dragons descended from the ancient dragons? They were extinct in the original game, but it seems like they were returning now. Or maybe they've been in Dranglake all along, or maybe their wyverns are descendant of dragons. It's impossible to know at this point. So what caused the collapse of the Dranglake kingdom? Perhaps we'll meet the king in Dark Souls 2. The trope of a fallen or corrupted king has always been present in the Souls games, and I feel like he might have the answers. Moving on, let's talk about the story focus of Dark Souls 2. The focus of Dark Souls 1 was on humanity and the fading flame. While Frampt promises that linking the flame will undo the curse of the undead, it doesn't seem logical. The Link the Fire ending of the first game just means that the flame will last a bit longer, with you burning in Gwyn's place, and the Dark Lord ending still means that the flame will fade eventually. I believe both endings lead towards the same end, and that the flame is still fading in Dark Souls 2. In the first game, we have absolutely no closure on what caused the curse. Many knights ventured into Lordran in order to find out what caused the curse, like the Knights of Balder and Berenike, but nothing was really discovered except that the first flame was fading. In Dark Souls 2, it's been confirmed that there will be a huge focus on the curse. The curse of the undead, the Dark Sign. Almost every human you meet in the series is afflicted by the curse, destined to die over and over until they go insane and hollow. But how do you become cursed? What spreads it? Is there a cure? I believe these will be the questions we explore in Dark Souls 2. In fact, we're already seeing this emphasis. Like a moth drawn towards a flame, your wings will burn over and over again as you continue to hollow. You will lose your souls again and again to the soul-starved hollows that are instinctively drawn towards them. Expect this sort of thing to be a theme in the next game. To cap this video off, I'm going to read some of the more fascinating item descriptions from the beta. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like and try to contribute something meaningful to the discussion down below. Alright, let's read some descriptions. Throw lightning. this one should be familiar. This miracle came into the possession of the Melfian clergy through ancient lore. Little is understood about the source of its power. Perhaps this miracle belonged to some long-forgotten hero. You reckon you know who they're talking about? The next one is Hunter's Hat, and this one also should remind you of someone. Favoured by hunters skilled with a bow, this hat was based on the one worn by a folkloric master archer, whose name is now lost to time. The reason I think this hat indicates it's a sequel is not because Faris is in Dark Souls, but because the name of Faris is lost to time in Dark Souls 2, but it's not lost to time in Dark Souls 1. The next one is the key to the prison in the Huntsman's Copse. The undead hunts during the reign of the Iron King took place in this forest, and the cells in which the undead were held still stand there to this day. However, the march of time has eroded any difference between the captors and the captives, and I put this one in there just because I thought it was really interesting about the Iron King and how they're still hunting the undead. I think it's strange that the undead are still seen as such a plague when really locking them away doesn't ever do anything. I mean, they locked them away in Lordran in the Undead Asylum, and that did borderline nothing to curb anything, so... Anyway, the next one is the Life Gem. A small stone made up of crystallized souls gradually restores a small amount of HP. These stones are often found next to corpses. As such is the case, perhaps one could call this item the dead husk of a soul. On rare occasions, one might find a life gem that emits a particularly strong light. It seems the power of the owner's soul is apparent even in such a husk. And I thought this one was interesting just because it explains what a life gem is. It's crystallized souls, and souls are the essence of life in Dark Souls, so it makes sense that this heals you, I suppose. Alright, Human Effigy. An effigy formed from a lump of an unknown black material. It is surprisingly warm and strangely soft to the touch. Use this item to reverse hollowing. When gazing closely at the effigy, one starts to perceive a human's appearance. It is said that the appearance you see is your own true form. And I put this one in just because obviously human effigies are a really important mechanic. They basically replace humanity and they aren't really telling us anything new, but I thought it was interesting. ESTUS Flask. This reinforces the idea that the game is a sequel. There is a kind of link between the ESTUS flasks and the bonfires that illuminate the world of the undead, but knowledge of this has been long forgotten. All that is known now is that this flask remains a prized possession of the undead. Next, Homeward Bone. Fragment of an undead bone used as fuel for bonfires. Returned to the last bonfire rested at. This bone, belonging to an undead whose journey was cut short, has the mysterious power to travel to bonfires. It's almost as if it seeks to continue its journey. And I put this one in just because it sounded almost poetic, you know. An undead's journey cut short, that's why it actually teleports you back to the bonfire. The Dark Sign, a really important part of the game. Like a moth drawn to a flame, those branded with the Dark Sign are fated to be consumed over and over again. This is the only fate permitted to them. Now, I wonder if that's just wording or if, you know, fate permitted to them almost sounds like someone's controlling their fate. So that's an interesting thing to think about. And the last one I'll leave you with, Imperial Great Shield. A certain man's favourite great shield. Forged by layering thin sheets of iron, it provides excellent defense for its weight. Perhaps you'll learn more about the original owner when next you meet. Now I could be wrong, because I can't remember what this shield looked like in the game, but you know, I think this could be the shield of Patches. He always uses a really light great shield. Keep an eye out for him, I guess. Anyway, thanks guys for watching, I'll catch you in the next one. We see the struggle of others unfold around us, as they fight for the things important to them. There's a man who fights on behalf of his broken homeland. Another who fights to prevent his kingdom being broken. One man believes in research for the sake of knowledge, and maybe this knowledge will give you the power to fix your mistake. With this power, you may have to do terrible things to many,